And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks, presented by New Era. DJ Bucky on our desk with a plethora of some good-looking New Era hats here, Buck. I got to say right now, underrated hat. It's the Buccaneers hat.
Look, I'm all about their logo. I'm just not a big fan of their uniform. I would have to clean up the uniform a little bit. Take out all the digital stripes and all that other stuff.
A little busy.
A little busy.
No, the hat is not. The hat is simple, and the hat's pretty sweet. I'm a big fan of that hat. Anyways, we've got a big show coming up today, Buck. Tell the folks what we're talking about.
Hey, look, so we're going to talk about the prototypical wide receiver in today's game. If we could start a franchise, who would you want to be, or what style wide receiver would you want to have on your squad? Plus, we're going to talk about that position with interviews. Brandon Stokley, Billick, Dimitrov. They're going to help us figure out the top wide receivers and what they should have in terms of traits.
Yeah, this is part of our position prototype series that we've been doing all summer long, where we take one position, focus on it, and again, talk to those experts, get their opinion, and kind of at the end of it, we have to get together, put our heads together, and come up with who we believe is the prototype at the position.
We can't forget, we also have to talk about, because training camp is underway, we have to talk about a spotlight. So we can spotlight a couple divisions, big storylines, NFC South, AFC South. What are the things that we're looking for from those divisions? Yeah,
some really competitive divisions. You could argue two of the best divisions in the NFL. So we're going to break those down, storylines that we're looking forward to. But first up, it's our chats with Brandon Stokley, Brian Billick, Thomas Dimitroff, general manager of the Atlanta Falcons. Three guys that know a tremendous amount about the wide receiver position. It was great to get their insights on what we should be looking for when evaluating this position. All right, excited to be joined by our good friend, Coach Brian Billick, Super Bowl winning head coach. And, Coach, we're going to jump into this receiver discussion today. In your opinion, what's the definition of a number one wide receiver?
That guy that dictates what a defense has to do. Now, that number one guy could be, just like we talked about, a guy with size or speed that can take the top off. It may be a guy that in the intermediate zones, like a Chris Carter, that you're not going to win one-on-one. You're going to have to bracket, or you're going to have to play zone. It may be a guy like a Gronkowski that is just so physical in terms of the matchups and where you can get him the ball. So that dominant number one right now, and we probably throw the term around too loosely. There's only a handful of guys that are truly that dominant number one. Right now, Julio Jones is probably the most dominant number one that we have in the league right now in terms of everything that he can do, and a guy that if you go in, you better account for him on every single play. You can bracket him, you can roll over the top of him, you can jam him. You better do something, because if you ever leave him one-on-one or unaccounted for, the quarterback's going to find him.
No, I think it's a great point, Coach. I selfishly want to transition a little bit here and talk about Randy Moss. I think there's a debate. Some people believe there's a debate. Some say there isn't. It's always Jerry Rice and Randy Moss is the discussion. I don't think there's a debate, though. That's for who's the best wide receiver in the history of the NFL. I don't think there's a debate for who's the most talented wide receiver in the history of the NFL. And let's let you listen to this bite again. This is Chris Carter and John Randall on Randy Moss when he first joined the Vikings.
I really wanted to put a mark on his memory that he would never, ever forget, as far as what it was going to take to be great.
Oh, my God.
After a few workouts, I called Dennis Green and told him that he is the most unbelievable athlete that I have ever seen.
Most guys, you just watch them in practice. I always do the opposite. I go over there and talk to the guys who are going against them. And I asked those DBs, what do you think? They were going, there, man, I'm not going against him. And that summed it up right there.
Yeah, Randy, I think you sized up very well, DJ, when you said, with all due respect to Jerry Rice, who is probably the greatest receiver of all time, I think Randy Moss is the greatest talent at receiver we've ever seen in this game. And I don't know that we'll ever see the likes of it again. Chris alluded to it there. I remember Randy Moss kind of fell to us. Denny Green came in the morning of the draft, says, we're going to get Randy Moss. Now, we were picking at like 21, 22. And I'm thinking, and Denny, who's one of the best personnel coaches I've ever known, God rest his soul, I thought, well, Denny, you're off your game now, man, because there's no way Randy Moss gets to us. I had done my work on Randy Moss, but not to the detail, because I thought there's no way he gets 21 or 22.
Dallas Cowboys select defensive end from North Carolina, Greg Ellis.
he gets past Dallas, he goes past 12, and all of a sudden there's a run here.
Robert Edwards, Vonnie Holiday, Terry Thayer.
My God, Denny's right. We're going to get Randy Moss. So now I really throw myself back into the film, and I'm just getting jazzed now. Boy, we're going to use it this way.
The Minnesota Vikings have selected wide receiver from Marshall University, Randy Moss.
Well, Chris called me about 2 weeks later, and Chris Carter used to have a workout camp down in Fort Lauderdale. And a lot of a lot of players would go down there. Well, certainly Randy goes down there. And after a couple of weeks, after the first couple days that Randy Moss is there, Chris calls me and says, Brian, you have no idea how good Randy Moss is. I go, oh, Chris, I know. Look at the film. We're going to do this. It's going to be awesome. He goes, oh, Brian, listen to me. You have no idea how good Randy Moss is. And coming from a Chris Carter, that's pretty high praise. And obviously he delivered. I remember his breakout game, because I'm always asked, okay, when did you know, or when, you know, what time during the season? There's a lot of Randy Moss stories, but it was a Monday night game in Green Bay. So it's Monday night, it's Minnesota and Green Bay, so obviously it's a huge spotlight. And Denny Green, as my head coach, was the great head coach. He didn't interfere a lot. He knew what was going on, but Denny didn't bother you on the phones much. But I remember we threw a go route. You know, like a lot of teams will start with Randy going, okay, now we're not going to let this rookie dictate to us. We're going to put our guy in, and he go by him. And he goes by, he gets a touchdown. And Denny switch over, he goes, Brian, you do whatever you want, but I do a whole bunch more of that. So we get another one, he gets down the field. Now there are two guys on him. And he goes by one, out jumps the other, and he comes up with a touchdown. Well, now we're in control of the game. We're near the end of the game. We throw another go to him down the field. Literally, there are 3 guys on him, and they're draped on him. And he goes up in the end zone and comes down. And that in itself was spectacular. But I will remember most is the 3 DBs looking back at the sideline, Mike Holmgren, and I think Fritz Shermer was the defensive coordinator, and looking back, and you could see it in their eyes. They were basically saying, what do you want us to do? Because the 3 of us can't do it, okay? So you better think of something else, because we can't stop this guy.
That is incredible. Coach, if you're looking at the game today and how it's changed from when you were there coaching those great offenses to where we are now, what do you feel like maybe is more valued in today's game, or can be more useful in today's game than what it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, it's interesting you'd bring that up, because you think about you're talking about 2 Hall of Famers in Randy Moss and Chris Carter. Can you imagine how lethal they would have been given today's rules? Now, Randy obviously more in the latter end of it, but Chris played in a time, we talked about the transition into the physicality of the game and how that's a tough transition for a college player. And now, given the rules and for a lot of different reasons, whether it's the ability to jam or lack of ability to jam, the hitting of the defenseless receivers, for Chris Carter to know now, if he were to play today, knowing I can go into because Chris would go in knowing I'm going to get lit up here, but I got to do it because this is where I got to go to get the ball. Knowing he can go in and be protected the way he is today, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah, you always value speed and that ability to take the top off the defense, but given the rules today, the ability to be able to move the ball in the passing game playing small ball, and no one does it better than New England Patriots and Tom Brady. And he was, when he had a Randy Moss and he had a Gronk and he could do the things down the field. But where Brady, a Peyton Manning, even an Aaron Rodgers are so brilliant is being able to play that small ball. They're starting 5. They know they can dictate a certain coverage, and they're going to have that off guard, or they're going to have that guy that can move around in a space that I know I can get I know where the hole in the defense is, and I'm going to throw it there because I've got a guy that also knows where that hole is and has the ability with that basketball on grass mentality. So certainly you're always looking for the big receiver and the guy that can, man up down the field and out muscle. But I think the basketball on grass, the ability to move in the underneath zones, given the rules today, you better have a couple of those guys on your team.
Absolutely. Well, that is great wisdom from you today, Coach. I can't thank you enough. It's a game that the ball is going up in the air more and more each and every year. The wide receiver position, I don't know that it's ever been more important than it is today. Thanks for shedding some light on it for us. All right, excited to be joined by our next guest here, Brandon Stokley. All he did was log 15 years in the National Football League at the wide receiver position. Coming out of, I still say, Southwestern Louisiana. Now it's University of Louisiana. What are we calling your school now, Stoke?
Louisiana, University of Louisiana at Lafayette. We like to be the state school, so we'll just say University of Louisiana.
If you had to just start with kind of the basics, the 2 or 3 core traits you believe you have to have in order to be successful at the National Football League level at the wide receiver position, what would they be?
Well, you have to have quickness. You have to be able to get off the jam in the press coverage. And if you can't do that, you're not going to win in the NFL. Yeah, these guys are too good. They're going to get in your face and going to try to reroute you. So you have to be able to have quickness to get off the line of scrimmage. I think second, you have to be able to get in and out of your breaks. To be a good route runner. And I think that's a little bit overlooked at the younger ages and in college. But when you get in the NFL, if you're not a good route runner, these defenses, these cornerbacks are too good. They'll cover you. And I think third is, you need to have good hands. You need to be reliable. I don't think frontline, speed is everything. I'd rather have a guy that's quick, that can get off the jam, that runs good routes, and that catches everything. And I think that's what you see a lot of these teams that are successful doing these days.
We always talk about building a basketball team with your wide receivers, getting guys with different skill sets. You play there with the Colts. I believe you guys, one year, all 3 of you, with you, Reggie Wayne, and Marvin Harrison, went over 1,000 yards. I believe you had over 10 touchdowns that year. But what were the different skill sets that you guys brought to the table that kind of complemented the whole offense with Peyton there?
Well, Reggie was that tough, physical wide receiver. And, he was our physical, he was our enforcer. If you needed somebody to run through a tackle, break a tackle, that was Reggie Wayne. Marvin Harrison, look, he could just do it all. He wasn't going to break tackles, but you talk about the quickness to get off the line of scrimmage, the acceleration, the attention to detail on the routes. You couldn't press him. And both of those guys had unbelievable hands. But the thing that really separated them was their work ethic and bringing it on the practice field Monday through Saturday, and then it just transferred over to Sunday. But those guys had a unique skill set. We didn't have that big 6'6" wide receiver, but we had the tough wide receiver in Reggie Wayne, and we had the quick, fast, explosive guy in Marvin Harrison. And I was just kind of the complement in between the two, like, okay, when they cover up both of those guys up, Peyton was just like, all right, let me just find that little guy over the middle. Hopefully he doesn't screw things up.
Yeah, over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns plus. I think you did okay there. I had a chance to visit with Peyton a couple years back. I remember him telling a story about how after practice he liked to, instead of going through the whole route tree, which for those who don't know, you're kind of running every single route that's in the book. He would take one guy, one route, and then just rep the same route over and over and over again. Was that what he was doing all the way back then?
Oh yeah. Remember 2012. Peyton's first year here in Denver, we were playing the Bears in our first preseason game, and I ran a bad route, and I drifted up the field on a 5-yard under route and drifted up the field. I thought nobody was there. Well, somebody was there, unfortunately, and it was intercepted. And everybody was watching that game. That was Peyton Manning's return. And so he proceeded the next day at practice to make me run that route with him off to the side. Every time a special teams practice was going on, or after practice, or anytime we had a little break, I had to run that 5-yard under that I've run probably a million times, and I knew my mistake, and I knew what I did, and I was never going to do it again, but I had to run that thing 1,000 times during practice, so that did not happen again. So that's Peyton Manning, just the attention to detail, the repetition, making sure that everybody was on the same page.
All right, Brandon, I want to test your memory a little bit here. We've talked a lot about those years you spent playing with Peyton Manning and Marvin and Reggie and those guys. I want to go back to the Baltimore Ravens where it started. I want to go back to the Super Bowl. Obviously, everybody knows about your touchdown in that one, the first touchdown of that game. Do you remember? I'm sure you can't forget this, right? You remember the play call, the coverage, and did you know right away? Did you know right away this was coming your way?
I thought I had a good chance for it. I felt really prepared that game. Our receiver coach Milt Jackson, the late great Milt Jackson, we were going through different scenarios what they like to do, and we knew they liked to bracket the 2 inside guys. And so I saw the coverage, I knew what they were doing, and Milt told me, hey, you're not going to be able to beat both of these guys. Pick one of them and pick that outside guy and try to beat him. And then the quarterback, if he throws it to you, he's going to have to beat the other guy. Well, fortunately for me, I had Shannon Sharp on the other side of the football. And for some reason, not only did 2 guys cover Shannon Sharp, 3 guys covered Shannon Sharp. That shows you what they thought about me. They're like, well, we're only going to put 1 guy, we're going to put 3 guys on Shannon Sharp. So I had it pretty easy, and it was just one-on-one, and the defensive back, Sehorn, I think he was expecting the help that he never got, and Trent made a great throw, and so I didn't really have to do all that much. I just kind of ran my route, and like I was getting double covered, just like Milt had taught me, and Trent made a great throw right down the seam, and I was shocked. I was like, oh, no way is this ball coming my way. I got a chance to catch it and maybe score a touchdown. So I was just like, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. And then I caught it, and I was right there. I mean, I was a couple yards away from the end zone, and no way I wasn't going to get that end zone. But it was, like a small kid from Lafayette, Louisiana, catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl in my second year in the NFL. I mean, I was just, it was unbelievable just to be in that situation.
Yeah, no, that's going to go down in Super Bowl history. People will see that play over and over and over again. Just curious, have you run into Sehorn since that game at all?
Have not seen Sehorn. I just tell him to jump on my back and I'd carry him for a few more yards if I saw him.
I love that. I love that.
He got hung out to dry on that play.
Yeah, no, it was not. He was not in a good spot. We'll leave it at that. And all apologies to the Sehorn family. Man, Brandon, I cannot thank you enough, man. I could sit here and talk about this forever with you. It's been a pleasure not only to watch you throughout your career, but to get to know you in your post-playing career. You do a wonderful job in the media, and we can't thank you enough for your time today. All right, Buck, excited again to be joined by our buddy Thomas Dimitroff, who, if I have this correct, TD, are you going into your 12th year as a general manager of the Atlanta Falcons? Can that be possible?
Unbelievable. It is 12 years, and that's not a back pat at all. It's just, it blows me away because we know how treacherous can be walking through a career like this just because there's just a lot going on, of course, but 12 years, I think there may be 3 or 4 of us that are right around that, a little bit more tenured than I am.
My first question to you, Thomas, when you're looking at that position, the wide receiver position, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things you absolutely have to have if you're going to spend a pick on a wide receiver?
Well, we've talked about this many years, having been brought up through the Patriot world, and there's no question you need athleticism, pure movement, body control. I talked about urgent athleticism on the defensive side, but I also think there needs to be urgency. There needs to be ability to run a route with urgency, stop, start, redirect. Separation is massively important for a receiver. Some people do it different ways. Julio's movement, of course, is different than Calvin Ridley's. Interestingly enough, Calvin Ridley was one of the, to me, when I watched him at his workouts, and you guys might have been at that Alabama workout, I have never seen a player run a route the way that he did, and gather his weight, decel to zero, so to speak, and get into and out of his cuts like Calvin Ridley. It is really fascinating to watch as he continues to grow. We think that combination of his speed, his ability to separate, pure natural athleticism, and continuing to hone his catching skills, could make him into one of the the very, very most talented players in the league as well. We feel that way. He's got a great leader in Julio Jones. When we went after Julio back in 2011, that was one of the things that stood out in my mind. It was this big, really, really athletic guy who had the ability to run routes like he was 6 feet or 5'11", quite honestly. That really caught my eye. It was one of the things that I continue to think about all the time as we put together our receiving group, is making sure that, again, separate speed, athleticism, and, of course, they have to be really, really, really fiery and competitive, and we think all of our group is.
So when you look at run after catch, does that carry more weight? Do you trying to find one guy like that to kind of mix into your group, somebody you can just flip the ball to? And how has that evolved and changed over the years you've been doing this?
It's really, really important. That run after the catch idea is hugely important for us. we get the ball to all of our guys. I mean, Julio does an amazing job doing it in his own way, of course. Calvin Ridley, you get him the ball, and what he can do with his explosiveness, to me, is second to none. And then you have Mo Sanu on a completely different wavelength, who's going to grab the ball and get his hard 5, 6, or 7 yards. So we feel we have at least three different approaches to that. And that run after catch, Daniel, is huge for us. Very important. I don't mean to play it down. The only thing I don't want to do is obviously get our players injured. So hopefully they're going to be doing it at the right time in the right place.
Well, TD, look, this is your first day off, and I know how precious the time is in the off season. It gets shorter and shorter each and every year. So for you to carve out some time for us today, man, we cannot thank you enough. It was great to catch up with you. All right, Buck, when we get a chance to talk to guys like this, I feel like, the notepad gets full. It gets full quick when you're taking out all the notes and when you get a chance to talk to guys that really, really know a position.
Because it's such a unique position. There's so many different body types and style of players that have been able to be successful. And when you go about it, you can talk about the one individual prototype, but also how would you build your prototypical wide receiver core? We've talked about it. We've heard Coach Billick talk about it in the past. Having a basketball team, having a bunch of different guys with various skills that kind of complement one another. And so it is a very unique position to evaluate, and even a tougher one to kind of put together when you're trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle to match when you're building a team.
All right, so if we're going to take a step back, take in all that knowledge that we just received, and we're going to come up with a prototype receiver as we head into the 2019 season. Who is it?
For me, it's Odell Beckham Jr. When I look at the position, I want a guy that is explosive, a guy that is a dynamic route runner, someone that can take the top off the coverage and give you a deep threat while also being a guy that can make plays on catch-and-run concepts. Odell Beckham Jr. can do all of those things. Like, I know we see the pizzazz and the flamboyance that we see when he is on the field, but when you really study him, he is as complete a wide receiver as you will find. He is everything from a textbook standpoint that you want at the position. He just does it in a very, very splashy package.
Yeah, splashy package when he's been healthy and on the field, darn near uncoverable. What he's shown coming out of LSU, very consistent when he's been healthy and on the field. I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins from Houston. And the reason why I'm going to go there, Buck, I've long had this conversation. We've had it on the Move the Sticks podcast. What makes a number one receiver? Now, I talk about third down when everybody in the stadium knows where the ball's going. Can you still win? I talk about red zone. Look, you got to score points. It's a points league. Got to score points to win games. DeAndre Hopkins is able to win in both those situations consistently. The size, the physicality, maybe not quite that same juice and speed that you see from an Odell Beckham, but he's competitive after the catch to collect some extra yards. And to me, I have faith and trust when the ball goes to DeAndre Hopkins on third down, red zone, big money downs. I feel very confident in him.
Look, it's hard to dispute and knock his production. He's been able to do it with a cast of characters at the quarterback position. He now has a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson, but even before Deshaun Watson was in the fold, he was still able to dominate on perimeter regardless of who was throwing the ball to him. I think that speaks volumes about his effectiveness and his impact as a number one receiver.
If you enjoyed those conversations, I think you're going to really dig this series that we've done, this Move the Six position prototype series. You can find that. Just go to Apple Podcasts, NFL.com/podcast, or your favorite podcast app. And also we have our own website there. You can go to NFL.com/MTS prototype. You can find that entire series where we go position by position. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. I told you, it's been a very educational experience for me because even though we've been long-time evaluators, I think you still can learn. And being around our peers, having conversations with our peers and players that have played those positions, it has only enhanced our learning. I think it has made me a better scout. I'm sure you probably would say the same.
100%. Get a chance to learn, take a lot of notes, and hopefully apply that as we go and continue on evaluating players. All right, Buck, time now for Training Camp Spotlight presented by New Era. We mentioned it at the top, talking NFC South, AFC South. I'll lead us off here with the NFC South. Just kind of a storyline that we're looking for, and I'll get your feedback on it as we roll through.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, start out here with the Saints, team that won the division 13-3 last year. I'm going to go to the center position. Eric McCoy getting a chance now, an opportunity as a rookie to get right on the football field. Max Unger decided to retire, who's done a great job since he was acquired, being that anchor in the middle for Drew Brees. We talk about undersized quarterbacks, the importance of that interior offensive line to be able to create some space. so that Drew can operate cleanly. A lot of pressure on a rookie center. All you've got to know, you've got some talented defensive linemen you're going to see inside that division. To me, all eyes on the center for the Saints.
Yeah, all eyes on the center, because when you look at this team is loaded. They have
it's a Super Bowl caliber
They
team.
have a dominant running back in Alvin Kamara. They got a dominant wide receiver in Michael Thomas. He'll eventually come to camp. You have Drew Brees, who can get the team to the winner's circle if you put the team in a position to win it in the fourth quarter. Defensively, they have a lot of young guys that are kind of growing into the role. So, yeah, it's about that offensive line, their ability to be able to control the game. Eric McCoy has to be a big part in their offensive line's dominance so they can dictate the terms on how they want the game played.
And no doubt it's going to be a fun team to watch, and no Mark Ingram there, so Alvin Kamara, we'll see if he can maybe handle a little bit bigger load. A lot of things to watch there with the Saints football team. All right, next up, the Falcons, coming off a disappointing 7-9 season. You can tie a lot of that disappointment to the injuries they had on the defensive side of the ball last year. So to me, the return of Deion Jones at the linebacker position, the return of Keanu O'Neal in the secondary, right up the middle of the defense. All those great defenses we talk about at Buck, built right up the middle. How did those guys come back, and can they get back to the form they were playing at previously?
Look, you talk about all the pieces of the puzzle coming back, all the weapons that they're getting back. I'm going to talk about the D coordinator, and that's Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn has
the head
man has taken over control of the defense. He wants to get back to calling the game, want to be intimately involved in the success or failure of that defense. And so how does Dan Quinn manage everything? How does he manage the offense while also managing the defense and being the head coach of the entire team? We've seen him be the CEO head coach, but now seeing him being a little more hands-on, I wonder if it will affect the way that he is the head coach and how he managed the entire operation.
And no doubt, definitely a storyline to keep an eye on there. I was talking to somebody the other day that they said in terms of head coaches that call either the plays offensively or run the defense, it's more than 50% in the league right now where the head coach has responsibility. I want to say it was like 18 guys who are either calling offense or calling defense.
Yeah, it's funny because that's a conversation that you wonder, because a lot of times you get hired because of your expertise on one side of the ball. But yet when you're the head coach, you have to manage three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. How are you able to delegate your time to allow you to still be strong at your expertise while also having the added responsibilities of managing the entire team?
Yeah, definitely a good storyline to keep an eye on. All right, Carolina Panthers. Look, to me, pass rush. Finding some pass rush, that was the focus in the offseason. They go get Brian Burns in the first round out of Florida State. And I believe it's his brother, right, that hit us up on Twitter? Pass rush
whisperer.
Well, there can't be any silent whispers with Brian Burns. It's got to be a loud, in-your-face presence. And so far, early training camp returns, things look pretty good.
I've seen the clips on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, he certainly we've talked about his ability to be a finesse rusher. He can use the speed and his quickness and those things, and he had all of that in spades at Florida State. But what is he going to be like when people are able to get his hands on? Is he going to be strong enough to be able to get out? Regardless, he is something that they needed. They need someone that can be a consistent presence off the edge. He has to help them and help their defense, because when the Panthers are rolling, it is about the running game and the defense. And we can't forget, big storyline coming out. Which Cam Newton returns? Do we see the MVP version, the guy that can kind of put the offense on the back, that can run it and throw it? Or is this a scaled-down version of the Cam Newton that we once fell in love with?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to us talking more about Cam Newton's performance and his outfit. Hopefully that's the case this year. Man, did you see what he wore into camp?
It's just always.
Come on, Cam. Come on now. Russell Westbrook was like, really? Anyways, I'm going to go now to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. New era now. We got a little bit more swag in your operation when you go get a Bruce Arians and bring him in. But my focus is going to be on the running back position, and Ronald Jones, a guy that we really liked coming out of college at USC, so explosive and just really kind of a lost year, his rookie year. Did not happen for him, did not put it all together. And that happens sometimes. You get a young player, it takes a little time. Well, it's go time now. He's got to step up and be a big player out of this backfield for the Bucs.
Well, we should be encouraged because we've seen what Bruce Arians has been able to do with running backs, particularly special ones. David Johnson emerged from being a third-round pick, became a dominant player, a guy who was on the verge of being a 1,100 guy. When I look at what Ronald Jones brings to the table, he certainly has the speed and the athleticism to be a playmaker as a runner, but I also think he can catch the ball out the backfield. We will see how Bruce Arians can really unlock his potential, or will they have to kind of scour the waiver wire or make a last-minute trade to find a running back that can give them what they need behind James Winston?
Speaking of Rojo, I might steal the hat. It's a good-looking hat. I like that Bucs hat right there. New era, kicking it down. All right, let's get over to the AFC South here, Buck. Very interesting division.
Very interesting division, and I think the central thing for everybody is always about quarterback play. When I go to the Houston Texans, it's about Deshaun Watson, and can they keep him protected? This is one of the more dynamic, explosive playmakers at the quarterback position. Young guy, but you got to protect him. You can't have him getting beat because then his eyes go from looking down the field to then he's worried about the rush, and he doesn't trust that the protection is going to be there. Let's see what that offensive line looks like when they have these young pieces trying to find their way.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of championship pieces on this football team. Talk about the quarterback, the defensive line. I like what they have at the linebacker position. I look at the safety and Justin Reed, kind of a bright young star. Players all over the field. DeAndre Hopkins, we've already taled about him being one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Will Fuller's a solid player. They've got good backs. This offensive line, to me, is right in the middle of the crosshairs, and they've got a couple rookies. We saw last year the Colts with a couple rookies in this division on the offensive line make an impact, make a difference. Max Sharping, and we'll see what you can do, and then we'll see with Tyus Howard what he can do.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure.
2 question marks up front.
Two question marks up front. Young guys. Some would say, were they potentially overdrafted, but ahead of what their projection would be? We'll see. The thing you talk about the Colts, Quinn Nelson was an all-day sucker. We knew he was an elite player, and they were able to get contributions.
Braden Smith
came along. So for the Texans, they have to get keen production, big-time production from their guys because they don't have any other option.
All right, who's next?
I'm going to go with Indianapolis Colts, and it continues to be the weapons around Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck has benefited from being able to be around T.Y. Hilton. We saw Eric Ebron. Come on, but they went and got Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell is terrific. He's dynamic.
Some serious juice.
And also the return of Deion Kane. Remember the name. Deion Kane.
I kind of forgot about Deion Kane.
Got hurt. They were excited about him. He comes back. If Deion Kane and Paris Campbell are able to surround them and give them that perimeter playmaking with the juice, T.Y. Hilton can continue to be a big-time playmaker for them.
That's fascinating to see how that all ends up coming together for him. Also went and looked around the league and tried to find a little size, and were able to bring in some size from the Carolina Panthers. So Devin Funchess giving them that power forward to kind of match up with the point guards that they have already on campus. So an interesting group of wide receivers there. I like that one. Who's up next?
Tennessee Titans. And the question has to center around their franchise quarterback, Marcus Mariota. He is on another offensive coordinator. After Matt LaFleur was hired, Arthur Smith takes over. What are they going to do offensively? I know this team is a team that is built to kind of be a blue-collar, rough and rugged team, but at the end of the day, your quarterback has to be able to find a way to score points. Marcus Mariota, in my estimation, has been up and down. Now he's in the fifth-year option. They have to make a decision on whether he's going to be the franchise quarterback for the next 5 to 7 years. It is on him to be able to raise his game. How does he do it in this new offense?
Corey Davis, year number 2. Big year coming. That's my prediction here.
Needs to be a big year.
I don't know how much the ball's going to be up in the air. When it is up in the air, I think Corey Davis is going to have a chance to. I will say. Let's go double-digit touchdowns. Corey Davis going to get you 10.
Okay.
Get you 10 this year.
He needs to. They need to find enough of a passing game to complement what I think is a terrific running game. You have Deion Lewis. You have Derrick Henry. We saw Derrick Henry kind of emerge as kind of like their lead back. Let's see how they can complement it. But look, number 8 has to play well.
All right, let's finish it off here. The Jags coming off a disappointing.
But the Jags, it's always the new quarterback in town. Nick Foles. Nick Foles comes over from the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy who's a Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl MVP. Can he play to that level outside of Philadelphia? Can John DeFilippo find a way to get him comfortable where he plays like a high-end quarterback? We've seen him play as a high-end quarterback at times in Philadelphia. I don't know if that's who he truly is, but maybe you can manufacture some of that production because I would like to believe that running game is going to be solid. Leonard Fournette is finally going to be the Leonard Fournette that we saw at LSU. He's been a bit of a disappointment. If Leonard Fournette can get up and running and be a dominant player at the point of attack, and then you get the contribution from Nick Foles, this team should be good because I expect that defense to bounce back to being a top 5 unit.
Also, Cam Robinson coming back, get your left tackle back, who was playing well before he was injured and lost him last year. I think that will be big for this Jags team. That was Training Camp Spotlight presented by New Era. Buck, fun show today, man. Got a lot of ground covered.
A lot of fun, a lot of ground that we covered. It's kind of fun. The video show is fun.
Everybody loves wide receivers, too. So being able to learn a little bit more about evaluating that position, everybody has a good time.
Everybody has a good time.
All right, anyway, some good-looking lids here. Thanks to the folks at New Era. If you're just checking us out, you can check out our podcast, the Move the Sticks podcast. Go to NFL.com/podcast, Apple Podcast, your favorite podcast app. You can find us there. NFL.com/MTS Prototype to check out the entire series that we've been working through, going position by position and getting some fantastic interviews and insight from former players, coaches, and executives. I think you'll enjoy those as well. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for checking us out. He's Bucky Brooks. I'm Daniel Jeremiah. This is Move the Sticks, presented by New Era.